Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Reimagine 2021 version 9, Game of Chains. So we're exploring a lot of the innovators in the space. We're talking about layer 2 solutions, things like side chains. There's been a lot of builders, moving the next generation of the ecosystem. I'm Roshan Mirajkar, one of your hosts for this event, and I'm very excited to be joined here by a new guest. With me here today, I have Tirman, who is the CEO at PARSIQ. Tom, thank you so much for being on the show. Just to start off, I think it would be really interesting to know, how did you get into the crypto space and do what you're doing currently today?
Oh, hi, Roshan. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me. I started in crypto relatively late. I got into crypto in 17. But I didn't really invest. I started researching the tech because something had to be behind this whole hype. And but when I learned how much this underlying technology can actually disrupt the financial world and a lot of industries, so that's when I decided what I want to do. And I met my co-founder Anatoly in 2018. And we started PARSIQ in 19 together. So then the idea of creating PARSIQ is instead of everyone was building different chains, different layer ones networks. And so instead of building another chain, we thought, why not we would build a bridge not only between chains, but also between these decentralized networks and the centralized world, real world. That's the main concept behind why we created PARSIQ.
Yeah, you're definitely right. And even now, people are launching new blockchains, and then there's another subset of people that are kind of forking the existing blockchains and kind of stealing those network effects. And I know, I think just today or yesterday this week, you guys just raised $3 million in new funding. So congrats on that. And so, yeah, tell me a little bit about, what do you all plan to use the funding for, and how is it going to help the blockchain ecosystem?
Well, the reason we did this round is not even mainly the funding itself, because we have runway for years, even without the current round. But why we did it is because we never had an institutional or a VC round. We funded the project with our own funds and with the public token sale at the end of 19, which was probably one of the lowest points of the bear market. But we managed to get where we are, and we have users. We have a live product, which is validated by the market, it's monetized, it's recognized, and so we thought it's time to scale things up. And the goal of this round was, sure, extending the runway is always good, especially in the blockchain space, but having on board the strategic investors, these VCs and angels who can provide more value beyond just the money, was the actual goal, because they can open doors for us. We can tap into their networks. They can help us with their advice. So this was the actual goal.
Yeah, it's great to hear that you all have a solid business model. I think a lot of projects in crypto, a lot of different blockchains, they're just technology, but at the end of the day, they need to be a business as well. So tell me a little bit more about who's your ideal user for you, and what kind of actions do you see them taking the most?
So the beauty and also the curse of the PARSIQ product is that has so many use cases. It's basically an open platform where anyone can build his or her own use case. So we have use cases for retail traders and users, for small, medium-sized businesses, for enterprises, both in crypto and in the traditional world. So that's a lot of segments to cover. But we're starting with the most obvious use cases. It's infrastructure for these Web3 projects, like protocols, decentralized applications, DeFi projects. Then we provide, let's say, blockchain to off-chain workflow automation use cases for these hybrid or centralized cryptocurrency service providers, which are exchanges, wallets, custodians. And I think the big opportunity will be when these traditional giants come into the space, which are already slowly doing. And I think this will be the biggest market opportunity for us because they will need something that would connect these decentralized networks, which are isolated and siloed and don't really work with these with the rest of the world. And they need something to easily plug it in and connect it with their legacy systems.
Yeah, that was actually one of my questions. Like all these new institutions that are coming in and larger like banks that are so old, they still run on archaic technology and all of this stuff. They want exposure, but I'm not sure if they have the knowledge to integrate so quick. So one of my questions is, I feel like in the traditional world, you know, a lot of the data is owned at the very top, and retail users they get monetized by using their own data and they don't really get any benefit. So do you think that PARSIQ will like democratize the crypto market in terms of institutions and retailers having access to the same monitoring systems?
Pretty much, yes, because since PARSIQ is an open platform, anyone can use, and we ourselves will be creating interesting like monitoring templates and triggers that can make this blockchain data, which is, while transparent, it's not actionable because it's unstructured. It's hard to make sense of it. And our product will easily make it actionable for retail users, for consumers, anyone. And we will provide the first building block by providing these ready-made use cases and libraries and templates. Eventually, we'll also launch a public marketplace where anyone can build an interesting data monitoring solution and put it out publicly for others to subscribe. So the idea is to be an open network.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you have a combination of both, like the open network, and you have like a business model as well. But you know, in terms of all the different blockchains that exist, like what is the view of PARSIQ? Like, do you guys integrate with all the different blockchains or just a couple?
So our view is that the future is multi-chain. We will be living in a multi-chain reality because that's why we are blockchain agnostic. So we can support any public chain and even some permission chains. We have integrated Bitcoin, Ethereum, obviously, but also Algorand, Solana, Binance Smart Chain, Huobi, EchoChain, and a number of others like Polkadot, and Dash, and we will add more. So we think that these different chains, they all have different levels of activity, of people building on them, of using these applications on these chains. And they also have different pros and cons in terms of the consensus algorithms, in the speed, cost efficiency. So we see more and more different bridges come along that allow you to easily port over from one chain to another. Polkadot is Cosmos. They are all solving this say problem of interoperability between these chains. But in our case, we're not only blockchain agnostic, we support all of these layer one networks. But also we provide a different, let's say, layer of interoperability between all those chains and decentralized apps, devices, web services.
I think that's a very good standpoint to have, and it also expands the amount of users and business reach, because staying on one chain, people are finding out that it's too limiting. But one of my questions that a lot of people have in the crypto industry has to do around like security, privacy. So what can you tell us about, how hard or easy is it to detect things when maybe people are building on a blockchain that gets forked, or even something like Bitcoin? Like, what are some of the things you think people don't know about that can actually be traced?
Well, one thing we're working on is monitoring of the mempool. So the mempool is where all the transactions are queued before they are given to the miners. So before even the first block confirmation. And we are working on mempool monitoring. We have it for some chains, not for others, because it's a different level of complexity. But the mempool can be tracked, and you can actually react to events that are visible in the mempool, so not mined yet. So theoretically, it is possible to front run some kind of events, malicious events. It's not easy to do. We're still experimenting, but you could put in a transaction with a higher fee to let's say, not allow an exploit taking place. So this is one thing that we are working on at PARSIQ is mempool. Other things, well, really, they are not as preventative, but they are also helpful because PARSIQ allows you to monitor any kinds of events. It's not just asset transfers. It's smart contract calls, it's failed transactions, someone, for example, minting tokens, burning tokens, transferring governance, so stuff like this, which might indicate some kind of risk, or so it won't prevent it, but you know it immediately, but at least you can take some measures to mitigate it. The earliest possible reaction is still better.
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting, that you talked about all these different metrics that don't exist in the traditional world at all. When you're talking about burning and all these different properties, you need to actually learn about the industry and what moves the market. One thing that I find really interesting is I know that you all also, are able to create workflows for off-chain applications as well. So can you kind of explain, like, what does that actually mean? Like, how are you doing this off-chain?
So we have created a concept that's called smart triggers. And smart triggers is a little bit similar to smart contracts that work blockchain to off-chain. So they extend the functionality of smart contracts into the real world. And they work like this, that you can set up what you want to monitor and build a workflow, what do you want to happen if these events take place. So sort of if this, then that automation. If something happens on the blockchain, then do this. And those actions outside of the blockchain can range from simple like Telegram alerts to sending process data to your accounting software to even automated trade execution on exchanges, for example.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Like, I think there's a lot of use cases to explore there. And I think the other thing you all are doing is making it easier for like institutions and like just small, any business to gain more exposure into the space. So from your viewpoint, do you think long term, like all of these new companies coming into the space are going to run their own infrastructure, or will companies sort of use like more SaaS products?
Oh, I think they will use SaaS for sure, as running your own infrastructure, running your nodes, it's expensive. It adds a lot of complexity. You have to maintain the servers, the nodes. It's a hassle. So it's a big problem. And in our case, we run those nodes in a distributed way, and we make sure that they are running and actually streaming these live events, and that the companies don't miss anything. So I think it's much cheaper. It saves them money and time, and reduces complexity to use SaaS products to easily connect to this infrastructure without building their own. Big enterprises might want to build their own, but that's for different reasons, not because they want to, but because they have a lot of sensitive data that they might not want to store on someone's cloud, on a SaaS cloud. So they might run it themselves. But for them, we will provide an on-premise solution, so something that they can host.
Yeah, definitely. I think that although some companies are adding, assets to their balance sheet, not everyone runs the nodes and the infrastructure, and it is pretty costly depending on what chain you do it on. I think the other thing that maybe we haven't talked about yet is the rise of DeFi in the past year. So can you tell me, do you guys also do monitoring for DeFi, and what effect do you think a product like yours will have on the market when you can queue things in real time?
Well, DeFi has evolved quite a bit in the last year or two, and we have a lot of interesting financial products, decentralized financial products in the space. It's actually one of the most popular use cases of the PARSIQ platform for people to monitor and build these automations for events happening on DeFi. So what does it mean? It means they can monitor different things in real time and react to them. So that means monitoring Uniswap swaps, monitoring liquidity pools when they are created, when liquidity is added, liquidity is removed, because all of these events might mean some kind of opportunity or edge to these traders or people who are in DeFi. And it can be any events. We can monitor like loans, liquidations for AVEC, collaterals. We can monitor balancer swaps, liquidity pools. We can monitor Ocean Protocol data set deployments. So any DeFi events, you can filter out to monitor these specific events and be able to react to them timely.
Yeah, it's pretty comprehensive, and it's very interesting that you can go that deep and really look at all those metrics, because the data is all there. But tell me about some of the characteristics that you all look for when you're trying to detect things like origination points and even things like fraud, because I think a lot of people just think you're doing these transactions and it's just bits and it's hard to detect.
It is hard, but because here's a distinction between on-chain data and off-chain data. So on-chain is the transaction data originating from the blockchain. We can see it all, not only, like I said, not only asset transfers, but all the fine-grained events that are happening there. We can make sense of them. We can process them. We can transform them into a valuable format for the user to understand. But we don't deal with off-chain data directly. So this is why we have integrations with off-chain data providers. And that means we're integrated with price data providers, so that you can set these triggers not only to react to blockchain events, but also to price changes. Because USDT or fiat rate is actually an off-chain metric. And similarly, we are partnered with multiple risk data providers who do transaction risk scores, who can actually tell you the source of funds, whether it's from fraud, from scam, from gambling. And we have integrated a number of them. They are good partners of ours, like Bitfury, Crystal, Close Security, and others. And by using these integrations within the PARSIQ platform, you can even set certain triggers or thresholds that if a deposit comes to me from an address which is blacklisted or a high-risk address or involved in some kind of fraudulent activity, then alert me, for example, or send it to my compliance department, my AML department. So by combining our blockchain data processing with these third-party off-chain data providers, we can actually give this service to for everyone to use.
That's actually super interesting. And one of my further questions was, kind of what you're saying about credit, do you think in the future we'll have like a DeFi or crypto KYC credit tool that's like mainstream, or do you think you'll be able to prove your source of funds or your identity through how you guys are doing through PARSIQ, just like on chain?
Well, we provide the tools for risk monitoring, but we don't do KYC, so everything is still semi-anonymous, and it depends. It depends how fast the regulation will come. So in certain cases, I do see that you may need to use such tools for on-chain KYC and credit risk scores, but it's only when you interact with centralized service providers, with centralized exchanges, because a lot of them will be made by the regulators to have this as mandatory. But if we're talking about like pure DeFi, then in that case, I don't think this can be really forced upon anyone.
Yeah, for sure. At least not yet, and I hope not. But kind of shifting over to talking about things like privacy and security. Do you think that long term, like people will actually adopt a lot of these security standards of using a different wallet when you're transacting, or do you think that this technology will always be kind of complicated and people won't know the best practices for like many more years?
It will certainly take a long time, but there are already some say business standards being worked out, especially so we are working with the Enterprise Blockchain Security Council to help them create something that would complement the ISO standards for IT. And there will be a lot of they're not mandatory, but there will be a lot of security, let's say, certifications in place. You have to, for example, you have to monitor smart contracts that hold value, or you have to use certain types of wallets, and you have to follow certain procedures. So I think this is all coming, but it's going to take a long time.
Yeah, even some of the best practices are so different, among different chains. But how about things like security and privacy? Can you tell us anything about, are there specific blockchains, like privacy preserving blockchains, that something like PARSIQ cannot tap into, or is there always some arbitrary data that you can sort of make a best educated guess?
Well, yeah, the full privacy blockchains like Monero, so those our technology cannot track, and there's really, yeah, currently there is no way around it. So we will research it more in depth in the future. But we've seen also some privacy blockchains which have opt-in features. So, for example, they can allow to make public certain transactions or certain parts of the ledger for audits, for regulatory compliance, and still be private in the rest of their dealings. So maybe we'll see more of these hybrid models in the future.
Yeah, because what I was thinking is, what's your viewpoint on the future of commerce on the blockchain, or even these companies utilizing blockchain? Like how can we do business efficiently and have these companies, not share all their on-chain, not share all their secrets on chain, so to speak?
Yeah, it's a good question, I guess. Here this anonymity comes in, because you really, so can blockchain addresses really be considered sensitive data? So I don't think so, because really that there is no identity behind them. still not feel comfortable of all their business transactions being on a public ledger. So, but with things coming in like Lightning Network and the sharding for ETH, if they one day become to reality, so I think these types of transactions might actually help with that concern for the commerce companies.
Yeah, I'm sure they will maybe choose something more permissioned or more anonymous, like you're saying, because commerce is a completely different element. And how about, like, how does PARSIQ keep up with all of the new technology that's launching, like things like NFTs? When those things launch, are you all able to start to detect a lot of the properties and track on day one? Or how does your team think about it from a development standpoint?
For the networks that we support, we host full nodes of these chains, and we put our own plugins like traces and trackers. We alter the source code of the nodes, so we see all the events that are happening, even issued NFTs, transfer of NFTs, and everything related to them. So for the chains that we do support, we see all the NFT data and anything really. So it doesn't matter if it's NFT token, security token, a regular token. We can process that data. We can see it. Now, for new chains, we have a dedicated team that's doing constant research, because all the chains are different and they have different events inside them. And that's basically one of the value propositions of PARSIQ, that when we integrate a chain, then the projects, the developers, the users who come to us, they don't have to think about why these chains are so different and what kind of events exist within them. So we standardize everything for them.
Yeah, you definitely need a research team. I think all like crypto companies should have a team like that to keep up. Otherwise, the rate of innovation just outpaces everything else. I wanted to also ask you, do you have any interesting stories or any interesting companies that you work with that maybe like for our audience listening, like regular people might relate to?
Do you mean in terms of clients or partners, or
Yeah, anything like clients, partners, like people you all like work with or build integrations?
what do you think? Well, it's a good question. Because we work with a lot of different players in the space, from DeFi protocols to layer one protocols to launchpads and IDO platforms, and then really everyone else. Well, that's really off the top of my head. We have had a lot of positive feedback when we've helped projects and exchanges with hacks. For example, back in October, there was an exchange, Coin Metro was hacked. It's a close partner of ours, and we actually used our technology to. So we had to fork our token and restore the balances to the original token holders. And since then, we've done it for a number of other players. Like, for example, in September, there was a KuCoin hack where a lot of the projects lost their tokens, and the users lost tokens. So we helped a number of them do the same. So hard fork their contracts, restore the balances as they were before the hacks. So it's an interesting method of doing this, and most recently we did this with the Page network. They unfortunately also had a security incident, and our technology was the one that helped them mitigate it. So I think those are some of the more colorful, a lot of sleepless nights when when handling those situations.
Yeah, definitely. And we need like, people like you all to be on the other side while hackers are exploiting to really fight back. So and going a little deeper, do you actually think that could be like a service that companies could offer in the future, like recovery of crypto?
Now we've discussed it. We've even discussed it with other companies that we could do the monitoring and, if necessary, the mitigation. Someone can do the recovery and work with the law enforcement. It's might be possible, but currently it's not our main focus. We help out when we can, but it's more like for the good of the crypto community and to give something back. Maybe it can function as a business in the future with a dedicated department for sort of.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's just
mitigation.
exciting. It's just exciting to explore, but I hope it's not a big business. I hope we have less hacks. But to kind of end things off, what can we expect? Future developments or projects that you're working on at PARSIQ in the next couple of months?
Well, we just finished our fundraising round where we had the Solana Foundation involved in the round, as well as a number of VCs. We had Evan Cheng from Novi invest. So we have a good these strategic partners with whom we'll be working with on further products. So for the foreseeable future, an important milestone is the launch of our updated token economics with the IQ protocol, which is our own DeFi protocol to decentralize subscriptions. So decentralized PARSIQ software subscriptions as well as any other subscriptions. So there's going to be quite a lot of news around that, because as far as I know, no one else has built something like this, and we will test it out with our own product, with our own subscriptions and our own token. But it will be free, open source, and decentralized for any project to use for their own token, for their own subscription economy.
Wow, I've never heard anyone say decentralized software subscriptions. Definitely going to remember that one.
It's the new decentralized money, subscriptions.
Yeah, for sure. And where can people reach out to you? And also, what's the best way to get involved with PARSIQ? Any websites or anything like that?
Our website is parsiq.net, and on the website we have all the links to our community channels. Most active are our Telegram and Twitter, and also our blog for any updates and announcements.
Great. Tom, it was great speaking with you here today. Thank you for your insights into the industry. And, I love your collaborative nature of just helping all the chains and helping all the community.
Well, thank you, Roshan. It's great to be here, and thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. I'm your host, Roshan, again, and I will let you all tune back into the rest of Reimagine 2021 version 9. Thank you.